And we're ready whenever you are, Mayor.
Thank you, Kathy. Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's city council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raised hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the lower left-hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click that button to be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, please call the roll.
Mayor Tulley.
Here.
Councilor Selly.
Here.
Councilor Powers. Councilor Scamperly.
Here.
Councilor Stevenson. Here. Councilor Chivo.
Here.
Councilor Trent. Here. Quorum present.
And I know Councilor Powers has indicated he hopes to join us later in the meeting. So we request permission from council to be absent for the first part of the meeting, so he's able to join us.
I'm fine with it.
We're good? All right. And then I will also note that he has provided appropriate notice regarding his remote participation in tonight's meeting, so he may participate and vote in any action item coming before council tonight. We have 5 presentations tonight. The first will be Ogdensburg Land Bank Corporation Chairman, Jim Morrison.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Cronus. As I've come to the past couple of years as chairperson of the Ogdensburg Land Bank, I'm here again to discuss our annual report. This year we'll be talking about obviously 2025. Brief recap, the land bank has been in existence since 2018, has impacted many properties in the city to get them back on the tax roll, which is our ultimate purpose. We typically do that through one of 4 methods. The first 3 are usually through grants that we are able to get. The 4th one is using some of our own funds and maybe some grant help. First was demolitions. We've done 19 demolitions since 2018. Most of those result in side lot programs or side lots, which we typically will try to sell to neighbors that might want to expand their footprint. We've also secured one of those for our own purposes since we own the lot next door, and we've now deemed that as a buildable lot, which we might try to put a property on in the future. We also do renovations. If the grant allows, we'll renovate from A to Z, complete renovations. We've done a couple of those since 2018. The most recent trend with state funds has been more towards stabilization grants. And so the difference between stabilization and renovation is just that we can't take it as far. We basically fix infrastructure and we try to get it to a certain point, and then we try to get it on the market for either a contractor to buy and take it the rest of the way, or a homeowner that might have the skill set and the vision to grab that property and take it from there. And then the 4th, as I said, is new construction. We've accomplished that a couple times in the recent past through dealings with BOCES and the BOCES trades program and the homes that they build. We've put one of those on Ogden Street here in town and one on Barry Street, and those both look very nice. They're very nice additions to those neighborhoods. Unfortunately, my report for 25 is a relatively quiet one. We did not have a lot of success in 25. The market, market's not the right word, but the budgets the last 2 years with New York State have really kind of dried up with funding for land banks. I'm part of a land bank statewide, a land bank committee that meets via Snap or Zoom, I should say, every month. And everybody's lamenting the same thing. The funds just aren't there right now. It's not a priority at the state level. And so we're struggling with the properties that remain in our inventory to try to be able to do things with them without that type of funding. There are, of course, private funders, but those typically are very specific to either regions, areas, or types of properties that they want to see rehab. And we've had no success, at least not in 25, with finding anything that worked for us there. Incidentally, you have the 225 report, which I'm kind of going through a little bit here as I make my comments. So in 25, we had no property sales. we unfortunately had no side lot sales. We currently have 5 side lots that are available. We do try to, every once in a while, send out a reminder letter to neighbors around those side lots that these properties are there. The minimum right now on a side lot is $6,000, which really only covers the cost that it takes us to get the things turned over. But at any rate, we still have 5 of those. The one thing that we did accomplish in 25 was a stabilization grant that actually began in 24. That property is on Knox Street, and I'm happy to say that as of today, it's on the market. So that property is now up for sale. And again, our hope would be that a contractor and or someone privately that has the skill set and the vision might be able to take that the rest of the way and then complete what needs to be done on it. We did mostly, as I said, infrastructure related things with heating and plumbing, and we fixed the back part of the building needed some work, so we took care of those things. So we talked a little bit about the side lots. Again, we have 1 right now in our inventory that we added to a property we had. We have 2 buildable lots right now, one on Morris Street, one on Rensselaer Ave. We continue to look for ways to try to find some funding to help us either with a BOCES building or to maybe build ourselves to put something there. But the challenge right now, again, has been just the general dearth of any type of funding in the land bank world. And it's not just us, it's, as I said, it's across the state. If you look at the Appendix A, you'll see our property inventory is probably as small as it's been since our inception. We only really have 7 or 8 properties right now. That leads to the second issue that we have, which of course is the challenge that we no longer have our partner here in the city to deal with foreclosed properties. That now has become a county function, and the county has been less than willing to work with us. We continue to try to show them the value of the land bank in the city of Ogdensburg, but to date we've not had any success with getting them to really have much of a discussion with us. We do have a couple properties that are still on the city's list. I guess those would have stemmed from a time frame before the county's takeover of those properties, and our construction manager is working with Mr. Cronus' staff to look at a couple of those. We've identified 2 that we think might fit our inventory, and then again, we would, kind of maybe come back to you and talk about purchasing those. But right now, it's really a matter of trying to find some funding streams that, if New York State is not going to fund land banks, at least not in the current year, as they did not in 25, then that's really where our challenge is, trying to do something with the properties we have. Certainly we have some funds of our own, but we spend those and they're gone. The grants obviously are the way to go when it comes to trying to accomplish these things. And as I said, short of 25, we've accomplished many of those 2018 through 2024. So that's kind of where things stand right now. My report's rather short because our year was rather uneventful, frankly. But I'll try to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Jim. Questions or comments from council?
Jim, so when you say you have issues with the county and trying to purchase the property?
Their process is very rigid, I guess I'll call it, and they don't seem to, we're the only land bank around, but
right.
There's not any other, so they don't seem to really want to spend a lot of time getting to understand the value that we bring. We've tried to educate them. We're going to try that again.
Good.
But right now, the initial reaction was thanks, but no thanks. We're going to do our process, and we're more than welcome to go in and bid on the foreclosed properties, but that's not typically the best action for us to try to acquire those.
Right. Okay.
Anyone else on council? Jim, I thought I read there's maybe legislation in place to expand the number of land banks in the state.
I've heard that too. The group that I participate with on monthly meetings, I guess I'll call them, there was some discussion, but they really haven't defined how that's going to happen, Mike. So at this point, I think that's really just more grist in the mill than it is anything definitive. We are one of the only city land banks. Almost everything else is countywide.
Right.
So it's, from that perspective, we're different than a lot of the other ones.
Okay. Jim, thank you for your
Yep,
report.
thank you. I hope to have a better report for you next year. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, next, we have a presentation on the vacant rental properties program from Franklin County Community Housing Council Executive Director Nathan Cox.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. All right. So I was asked to come to share a little bit of information about our vacant rental program. This is a program that we initiated in 2025 in Franklin County. And at the end of 2025, another RFP was issued and we were given the opportunity to push into St. Lawrence County. Our initial award in St. Lawrence County is for $1.2 million. That's exactly what we got to start the program in Franklin County in 2025. It's a 2-year program, so we have 2 years to spend that $1.2 million in St. Lawrence County, which I don't think will be any issue at all. The funding itself, it provides $50,000 to $75,000 per unit being rehabbed to eligible property owners in St. Lawrence County, with the idea being that we're renovating vacant properties into affordable housing. After we've invested that money, the properties need to be leased to income eligible families at an affordable rate for 10 years after receiving that money. In terms of the program, eligible properties are those buildings with 1 to 5 residential units or mixed use buildings. So if there's a space that has like a storefront on the ground floor and the possibility for apartments on the second floor, that type of building would qualify. To qualify for the program, units need to be unoccupied. They also need to be uninhabitable or unmarketable. And part of our responsibility as the local administrator is to verify every applicant that appears to be eligible. We have to go on site, do a site visit, make sure that there is no one living there and that no one could live there in the current condition. We've had some owners ask about relocating tenants to do rehab work. If you're relocating a tenant, that means that the property is habitable and therefore it would not qualify. In terms of the awards, as I said earlier, it's anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 per unit that's being rehabbed. The amount of the award determines the income level of the tenant that will eventually occupy the unit. So at a $50,000 award, we're looking at targeting tenants who make less than 80% of the area median income. At $75,000, the tenants could make 60% of AMI. Some projects will obviously cost more than $50,000 or $75,000. Part of the program is soliciting bids and putting together a scope of work. If we determine that a unit can't be repaired for the amount of money that the property owners applied for, the property owner does have the ability to put in any extra funds that would be needed. We can use the money for just about anything that would make the unit habitable. Some examples, we can address health and safety improvements, code violations. We can do accessibility modifications if the property owner wants to have accessible units. Any sort of environmental remediation, such as lead remediation. The funding can be used to upgrade heating systems, fixtures, appliances, bathroom remodels, structural repairs, install new flooring. We've rearranged some walls in different units in Franklin County to make maybe a wide open space into a 2 or 3 bedroom unit. In terms of the application process, we've actually already received a couple of applications from within the city of Ogdensburg, but we are reviewing applications twice monthly as they come in. We're looking for a few things at the application, at the time of application. Property owners need to live within 50 miles of the property that they're asking for assistance for. This is because the program isn't intended to we want to avoid absentee landlords, and we want to make sure that people are managing the properties after they are rehabbed, and taking care of these units, because as I mentioned earlier, there's a 10-year compliance period, and during those 10 years, it's expected that the property will remain leased to an income qualifying family. We're also considering at time of application the size of the property owner's portfolio. We're prioritizing smaller property owners, but those with more than 20 properties are welcome to apply. In terms of our prioritization, it just means that if we have funding, if we have limited funding available and we have a small owner versus a larger owner, we're going to fund the smaller owner first. We're looking at the age of the property. In Franklin County, we had some difficulty with generating an acceptable list of EPA certified lead remediators. Fortunately, in St. Lawrence County, you have more of them than we do in Franklin County, but because that's an issue, an additional consideration and expense, we've decided that we're going to prioritize properties that were built after 1980, and therefore lead is not an issue with those properties. But again, that's just a prioritization requirement. We will consider rehabbing any property. It's just, like I said, if we're looking at one that was built, one property that's likely to have lead and one property that will not have lead, we're going to probably tackle the one that doesn't have lead first. Initially, right now, we're limiting funding to up to 4 units at a time. If property owners are applying with more than 4 units, they are essentially getting waitlisted until we fund the other projects that have also applied. We want to make sure that we're kind of giving everyone a fair shake at applying for the funding. So if property owners are applying for 5 or 6 properties, we may fund their first 4 and they may be waitlisted, and we'll come back to them if there's still money left that's unclaimed. After the buildings are rehabbed and they're ready for occupancy, as I mentioned, there is a 10-year commitment on the part of the property owner that they're going to lease a unit to income qualifying households and lease it at an affordable rent. We put a declaration of interest, so essentially a lien on the property for those 10 years. And we're responsible as the local administrator for annually certifying that the property is being used as it was intended with those funds. So that means that a family's there that meets the specifications, the unit's still habitable for that 10-year period, and the tenant entered into an initial lease on the unit of at least a year. And I should mention with that, the intention here is that we're developing long-term affordable housing for communities in upstate New York. We're not looking to increase the number of Airbnbs on the market. So we're not working with anyone who has the intention of rehabbing a unit or a set of units with the intention of using them as short-term rental properties. That's about what I have for you. Any questions for me about the program?
Thank you, Nathan. Council, any questions or comments?
Good program.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Just curious, for the manager, have we had any inquiries come into the city about this yet?
I think, as Nathan mentioned, I think he's got 2 in.
Right.
And we've, the code enforcement office is really the boots on the ground here, so they've been plugging this program.
Okay. Is there information about it on the city's website?
I don't think that is the case at the moment, but now that it's been public, we'll probably do something along those lines.
Okay.
I would have a question of Nate. How successful are you finding homes that are built after 1980? Because the majority of our housing stock is turn of the century.
The majority of people who apply have homes or buildings that were built before 1980. Like I said, that's prioritization criteria. It's not, we're still funding properties that were built prior to 1980. In Franklin County, I think out of the 15 or so that we have in the hopper at the moment, only 2 or 3 are built prior to that, or built after 1980.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody else? All right, again, Nathan, thank you for this presentation. There's certainly exciting opportunities for qualifying individuals, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Our next presentation is from City Historian Julie Madeline with regards to the local and national historic district proposal.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of the Ogdensburg Historic Preservation Commission. I'm pleased to present a proposal for the establishment of a local and national historic district. This project aims to preserve our unique heritage while driving economic revitalization. We're building on the momentum of our 2025 Heritage House Registry, and we're proposing a formal local district covering roughly 900 buildings from the Crescent to Patterson Street and from Riverside Ave to Lafayette Street. The North Star here is National Historic District status, which would unlock major financial incentives. To get there, we must conduct a cultural resource survey. And the Adirondack Architectural Heritage Association estimates that this will cost $40,000. We plan to pursue the Preserve New York grant, which can cover 80% of that. So why do we want to do this? Well, residents can gain a 20% New York State historic home ownership tax credit for repairs. Beyond that, historic districts typically see higher property values and attract heritage tourists who spend significantly more than average travelers. We'll use a hybrid model to lower costs. We plan to utilize interns from local universities like SUNY Canton or Clarkson to do the field work and data entry. We can also phase in the survey if full funding isn't available immediately. Our recommendation is for City Council to authorize the city manager to pursue the 2027 Preserve New York grant cycle. This isn't just about old buildings, it's about jobs, tax relief for residents, and civic pride. We've already completed the preliminary boundary review with the state. Our immediate steps are reviewing the current grant guidelines and formalizing our partnership with ARCH for the application. Once the district is established, we need to make it visible. This includes 30 to 60 specialized signs, ranging from large gateway monuments at entry points to vehicular directional signs and pedestrian kiosks. The total estimated investment for this infrastructure ranges from $110,000 to $355,000, depending on the signs that we choose. We propose a 3-year phased rollout. Year 1 focuses on branding, Year 2 on access, and Year 3 on engagement. Funding will be a mix of grants, private support like the Pomeroy Foundation, and potential local matches. Gateway signs are planned for critical entry points, such as the International Bridge Approach, Route 37, the Ford and State Street intersection, and Route 68. So thank you for your time. Does anyone have questions?
Questions or comments for Julie?
I think it's very impressive that the commission is taking this on, and I thank them all for their hard work. We do have some wonderful historical homes in the area, and we should be proud of those and encourage any rehab or any investment in those we can. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. I will say that when Leslie Krupa came up from SHPO, she was absolutely, we took her on a tour of the city. She had never been to Ogdensburg before, and she was absolutely amazed at the architecture here. And we asked her, did we pick too large an area? And she said, absolutely not. This is amazing, were her exact words to us.
For those that aren't aware of SHPO, could you just tell them what that acronym is?
So basically, they are the ones that handle all the historic requests in the state. Yeah. So, I mean, it's nice to see somebody out of the area who comes in and says, wow, this is amazing. So, thank you.
Have you had any feedback from the residents? Have you discussed any of this with them?
Not yet. We want to do some education first because there's a lot of false information out there about historic districts.
That may be some of the false information, but we've had historic structures here in the past that have had trouble finding funds to rehab because they had to be done with authentic.
That's some of the false information that people have.
I know when I was on council before, we had a house, I believe, off of Hamilton Street,
Yep.
and we were limited as to what we could do with windows and stuff like that. And it almost doubled the rehabilitation costs. And I'm a little concerned with that, that's all.
Yes, and that's a very common thing that I hear. And if you are funding it yourself and you want to make repairs, you can do it any way that you want. If you are taking the government's money as a grant, then you have to do it the way that they want it done.
Okay.
So that's the difference there. But if you want to paint your door purple and have pink polka dots on the outside of your house, that's your business.
That would be historic in Ogdensburg.
Yes, yes. Any other questions?
Anyone else? Yeah, well, I'm supportive of the project, okay, and we'll support the resolutions laid on the grant. I do have a little concern about the potential local cost over time,
Mhm.
even though I understand that the benefits are there for the tourism and the extra revenue generated in city business. But absent, positive support through other funding sources, grant sources, whatever, the numbers, I would need to defer to management during budget discussions to see what our priorities are.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
But I don't want to discourage your effort. Anyone else? Thank you, Judy.
Okay, thank you, Judy.
Next, we have a recreation update from Recreation Director Harrison Wirt.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Harrison Wirt, and I'm the Recreation Director for the City of Ogdensburg. And today I will be giving you a review of 2025 and our outlook for 2026. This past year, we held many different events, camps, and programs for citizens of all ages. I will get into those details shortly, but first I'd like to share our unaudited fiscal results from last year. Last year, we budgeted for $1,041,000 in costs with $330,000 in revenue offsets for a net cost to taxpayers of just over $700,000. The actual results were better than that. While our revenues were down about $7,000, our actual costs came in lower by almost $47,000, making the actual cost to taxpayers a little less than $40,000 than we anticipated. Most of our program costs were lower than expected, except for at the arena, where we had to make numerous repairs in September and October on the mechanicals to get us up and running. This past year, we held the 3-on-3 President's Day Hockey Tournament, the Ogdensburg Cornhole Open, and the Holiday Hockey Showdown. For the President's Day Tournament, we had 18 teams sign up, and we would have had more, but we had very poor weather that day. Going back. Regardless, we brought in $720 on that event. Our first cornhole tournament, we brought in $520 in revenue. And then our hockey tournament that we held this past December, we brought in $650 in revenue. Next, we had a total of 200 kids sign up for our Biddy basketball and Biddy baseball programs this past year. These are free for the kids to sign up, and coaches and varsity players from each sport volunteer their time to mentor the kids. So it was good to get 200 kids out there. For our summer camp programming, it consisted of 11 sports and then our new water aerobics program. There were 6 programs that weren't able to cover their payroll costs. However, the other 5 programs were able to cover their own costs as well as the total cost for the other 6 programs as well. I didn't count the hockey camp in this number as I run that camp and there are no additional payroll costs to us. But it is good to know in this breakdown that we know which camps can support themselves and which can't, but also understand that the camps are able to cover the others and make out as a whole. The fiscal performance of our camps allows us to continue the same programming in 2026, but measuring the performance also allows us to make more educated decisions when it comes to potential programming changes in the future. This past year, we tracked the cost to run swimming lessons. Our total wages costs were $18,946, while the revenue that we brought in was $2,000 and $2,025. This was the first year that we broke down the cost and revenue of swimming lessons, and we will be looking for a more cost-effective approach for future seasons. This past year, we held 2 free concerts in the park, both of which had strong turnouts. There were around 75 to 100 people at each concert, and we heard positive feedback regarding that. At Fall Festival, we also had DJ Bunk and bands Permanent Detour and Plan B perform. We wanted to build on these events this past year, so next year we will be introducing a concert series, which we will be calling the Ogdensburg Concert Series. It will be held on the dates shown on screen, with an official schedule regarding the bands will be released shortly. We have applied for a grant from the St. Lawrence County Arts Council to help fund this series, and we've budgeted to cover the rest of the cost of the series, which will come out to $5,200 for all of the bands, including the 2 performing at Fall Festival. This past summer, we ran an arts and crafts program at the Dubisky Center, which we ran once a week for 7 weeks. We had roughly a total of 250 children participate, which was no cost to them. And this year we will be expanding on that, and we will be holding arts and crafts twice a week, once a week at the Dubisky Center and once at a city park. We'll be rotating which park we're at each week to make sure to get as many kids involved as possible. There will be no cost to participate, and this will be partially funded by the St. Lawrence County Youth Bureau Youth Development Grant. This past winter, we introduced an indoor pickleball program at the gym at the Ogdensburg Boys and Girls Club. We ran it on Mondays and Fridays from the beginning of November to the end of February. Participants who signed up were able to play for 2 hours on Mondays and Fridays, and it gave them an opportunity to stay active and continue playing pickleball throughout the winter. We paid $1,250 to rent the gym for 25 sessions, and we had 26 participants sign up, paying $75 each, which brought in $1,950. The excess revenue was used to help fund other programs that we ran. Finally, this past year, we held our second Fall Festival, which included food trucks, alcohol and craft vendors, petting zoo, hay rides, bounce houses, face painting. We also had Permanent Detour and Plan B provide musical entertainment along with a DJ for the kids games. This year we will be looking to do the same. We have 2 confirmed bands, and they will also be announced when our concert series schedule is posted. This year's Fall Festival is scheduled for September 26th.
Thank you, Harrison. Questions or comments from council?
Harrison, I just have one question. The swimming lessons, those are separate from the access to the pool, right?
Yes.
Those are separate sign up that they do.
Yep, that's correct. That's a completely separate program.
Thanks.
And don't we get a significant grant though from St. Lawrence Federal Credit Union to help with that program? Or is it just general revenue and recreation for the pool?
They do donate. That donation is for, to keep the pool free for
Okay.
Children to go
Understood.
and enjoy.
Thank you.
And the fact that I mean, it looks like we lost, wage costs for $18,000. For every kid that learns how to swim, that kid's not gonna, the value of that swim lesson is way more than the cost of the wages, I think, because, if you can't swim, we live on 2 rivers. If you can't swim, that's a problem. I don't think that's a real problem. The wage costs is minimal compared to not being able to swim. I think that's a good, we need to keep doing that.
No, we weren't planning on getting rid of swim lessons, just making it more efficient.
Right, yep, sure.
And Counselor Tebow, I'm sorry, Counselor Tebow, that wasn't my intention asking that question.
No.
I too was concerned, just trying to align in my mind the money from St. Lawrence Federal Credit Union
Right.
separate from the swim lessons.
Right.
I agree, it's a valuable item.
Were those wage costs strictly for instruction in the swimming program, or that lifeguards that were paying to be there anyway?
That was for the lifeguards who were running the swimming lessons.
Just for the swimming lessons?
Yep.
Okay.
If I could just make a comment from management, management's making no recommendation one way or the other.
Right.
On the swim lessons, we simply present the information to council so that they can make decisions.
You teach the hockey program?
Yeah.
And that's during the summer?
Yep.
No ice.
No, it was just off ice.
I want to crack a little joke here, but.
Don't.
Harrison's half American, half Canadian, and I want to bring in the Olympics, but I was just wondering what style you teach in, the Canadian or the American?
Teach both.
All right, good.
That was a really good answer.
Other questions or comments?
It's a great presentation. It really shows us what the efforts you're doing and where the dollars are being spent. So thank you very much for this detailed report.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is
Thank you.
Good report, but more than that, just the increase in programming, both for our kids as well as for our adults, and the variety to include like the concert series and things like that. It's improving on the overall recreation department efforts, and so I appreciate your efforts in doing that, Harrison.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we all do. I grew up in this town and we did not have this number of activities. So excellent work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation about the DRI award from City Manager Fonda Cronis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Kathy. Kathy, you want to go to the next slide for me, please? March 10th was a pretty good day in Ogdensburg. When the governor came and presented us with the cardboard check that said $10 million on it. That was an extraordinary effort after 8 previous attempts at trying to get that DRI grant award. And we were very proud to receive it. It was an effort, not just by 1 or 2 people, but an entire community. You don't get 270 letters of recommendation and multiple dozen of projects from developers if you don't have a community effort. And although we should celebrate this situation, I'm here to say, as always, the bearer of bad news, but winning that DRI award was the easy part. Now executing it is the hard part. And that, when I say it, that's a serious statement to make. But I understand there's quite a bit of rumor, innuendo, and just a lot of myths out there. So let's talk about what the DRI is not and what the DRI is. So the DRI is not a $10 million slush fund that the city gets. It is not a check that we receive and city council determines how it's spent. The municipality does not independently pick projects and distribute cash. There are no upfront cash payments provided to developers or project sponsors before construction begins. And this funding is not to cover municipal operations, staff salaries, or any kind of planning. What this is, in reality, is a state administrative program between private developers and specific state agencies. The city does not make the final decision on projects, the state does. And I'm probably going to say that several times through this project because it's very important for people to understand that. Funding is strictly on a reimbursable basis, with projects either hitting milestones or being completed, depending on what the grant program is. And that $9.7 million, not 10 million, but $9.7 million, because the state purchases the services of a consultant of sorts for about $300,000. That $9.7 million is reserved for capital projects, brick and mortar projects, anything that's physical and transformative. It's not for operations for businesses and not for operations for not-for-profits. Now, anything that we do is always a partnership, and there are 4 key partnerships in a DRI program. 2 of them are provided for by the state. There is a state team from Department of State and other state agencies that will come and help us navigate this program. And they hire a consultant team that I talked about a bit earlier to help do kind of the heavy lifting, work with developers, work with the local planning committee that we'll talk about in just a second, to get us where we need to be and navigate what is a pretty complicated program. On the local level, there's what's called the local planning committee. We'll call it the LPC for short. Those are folks that are locally, they're local folks, but appointed by the state, again, appointed by the state. They ensure that the local vision, community representation is really within this planning process. They also will evaluate proposals and they'll make recommendations for a final slate of projects to the state. Again, there'll be recommendations and not any kind of decision making. And maybe the most important cog in this are really the developers. They're called project sponsors in the grant process. They're the folks that have the site control, they run the businesses, and they're the ones who are going to be asked to put up their money as part of the project cost for this. So those are the 4 partners. From a scheduling standpoint, the state calls this a plan, then act process. So for the better part of the rest of this year, we'll be planning what the process is going to look like and then work towards acting. So in the spring, the LPC will be formed and they'll talk about vision, they'll talk about goals, a downtown profile, and those types of things, working with a consultant to do so. When summer comes along, we'll do what's called an open call for projects. I know the paper reported a list of projects, and those projects were great, and we hope that they all apply during the open call. But every project that wants to be considered for funding, really everybody starts from square one with an application into the process during the open call. So if you're in the DRI application itself, you still have to apply. And if you chose not to be, but now want to be, you're still eligible. But you must apply during the open call process. And then those folks that apply will work with the consultant to jazz up and to really work through the details of their proposal to really get into what a real development proposal is going to look like. They're going to talk about capital, they're going to talk about engineering, they're going to talk about architecture, they're going to talk about funding and all of those things that are critically important, because when the fall comes around, the local planning committee is going to evaluate all of the projects that are submitted and eventually put together what's called the strategic investment plan, which is going to list all of the programs and all of the projects that the local planning committee wishes the state to consider. Around December time, the SIP will be submitted to the state. It will have a list of somewhere between $12 and $15 million in grant fund requests. Again, that number is 9.7, so not every project is going to get funded, but the vast majority will, right? $9.7 million or so worth of projects will be funded. And those decisions are made by the state and by the individual agencies that run these grant programs. So the LPC through the SIP, all those letters will just say recommendations to the state, but the state makes final decisions on all of those projects. And then the state works with those individual project developers to do grant contracts, to set state SOWs, so statement of works, and different benchmarks and milestones for completion. So Kathy, if we go to the next slide, please. So what you really end up with is at the beginning of the process, you've got all of these ideas and all of these visions, and the process whittles it down to both the strategic investment plan and then ultimately a contract between the state agency, who's the funder, and the developer who's going to do the work. I do want to talk a little bit about the local planning committee because they are a critical part of this process. And although they don't make final decisions, they do help guide the bus a little bit. So the LPC has two co-chairs. The mayor will serve as the highest elected official in the city as one co-chair. The other co-chair would be a representative from the Regional Economic Development Council. The rest of the LPC will be somewhere between 10 and 12 members, all approved by the state, and the LPC serves as a steering body for the next 6 or so months. They'll hold at least 2 interactive public workshops, multiple outreach activities, and their job is to evaluate proposed projects against the local goals that are set and the different state criteria that the state will provide for us. Towards the end of the process, they will vote via official ballot to recommend a slate of projects to the state. And every member of the LPC will go through a strict code of conduct training. They'll be required to recuse themselves for any votes involving actual or perceived conflicts of interest. So this is a pretty serious process moving forward. As far as the open call is concerned, as I mentioned before, this is a mandatory part of the process. So whether you were in the application or not, everybody must apply to be part of the open call. Baseline requirements are pretty simple, although can be complex. You must have a clear, highly defined scope of work. You have to be able to document where your financing is coming from. We call those matching funds in this case. And you should be able to, or must be able to, demonstrate readiness to break ground within 2 years. Those are all mandatory requirements of what a good project would go through. We should talk about what is eligible and what is not eligible and any project expenses. So from an eligibility standpoint, transformative capital projects, new development, adaptive reuse projects, all of that work is eligible. Public improvement projects and streetscaping, those are eligible. There's a minimum project cost of $75,000. So if there's a project that's smaller than that, you would not be eligible for DRI funding. However, we have proposed to create what's called a small projects fund. So any of those projects that are good projects but just don't meet that threshold, we're hoping the state will allow us to have a small projects fund. Most DRI and New Forwards have those, so I feel very confident that we'll get one of those, and that will help with the smaller projects that still could have a very transformative effect. Think about maybe a facade improvement that may not get to $75,000, but certainly makes a big deal for the aesthetics of the downtown area. And another very important part of eligibility is that projects have to have site control. There has to be an owner or some type of a lease that says you have site control of this area. If you don't have it, you're not going to be eligible for a DRI award. Let's talk about what's not eligible. Standalone planning activities, feasibility studies, no go. If you're looking for funding for operations, maintenance, rent, salaries, utilities, etc., not eligible. Any pre-award costs. So if before you get a state contract, you've done work, those are not eligible. It's from the contract beyond. And then property acquisition, site control is a must. So if you don't have site control, if you don't have a lease, if you don't own it, you can certainly purchase the property, but those expenses are not going to be eligible for grant reimbursement. In the end of the LPC work is the strategic investment plan. That's an actionable blueprint. It has the downtown profile and assessment, vision and goals, and most importantly, that detailed project list that we talk about with cost estimates, conceptual renderings, regulatory requirements, the source of matching funds, capacity analyses, and those types of things. That's what goes to the state, and that's what the state uses to evaluate the different projects. I think it's very important to understand and set an expectation for what the minimum requirements are going to be for our developers, also known as project sponsors. The DRA requires a minimum match of 25%. So if I hit $1 million project, the most the state will give us is 75% or $750,000 for that project. And the developer will be expected to not only come up with the $250,000, but also be able to prove that they have access to that $250,000 as a viable project. Now, the LPC can take that 25% and increase it if it wishes to. There are reasons to do that, and many communities do that, because every dollar that a developer puts in, that means that there's more of that $10 million to stretch out between the different projects. So the higher the match, the more good those dollars are, the more it can be stretched. Also, there are advantages, whether the local match is 25% or higher, there'll be advantages to developers to actually present their funding stream with higher than that 25% match, putting in maybe 30 or 35 or even 50%. That shows a greater commitment on the developer's side, and will probably be looked more favorably with the LPC on their evaluation, and certainly by the state. The whole point of this is to leverage that $10 million to bring as much investment into the downtown area as possible. So for those developers out there who are thinking about doing this, let me just do a quick explanation of what happens if you are awarded and you get a grant contract from one of the state agencies. The first thing you're going to do after your engineering is squared away and you got all your building permits, and yes, building permits are required, is breaking ground. Get your contractors in and get the work started. You'll pay them. You'll pay them out of your kitty, out of whatever you finance, whether it's your own cash, if you got a loan, you'll pay them. You'll keep meticulous records and submit proof to the state that here's the work that's been done, here are the costs, against versus budget, what we said that was going to be, and you'll submit that information to the state. The state will review it. When they're satisfied that the costs are eligible and it's all in the proper form, they will, at that point in time, cut you a check. That's how that works. So there's no upfront cash. That's not how this program works. So in conclusion, this is a program about leverage, taking certain state dollars and trying to leverage them against private investment to get more bang for your buck. The key is to incentivize business to invest in our downtown area. The state money is designed to improve that return on investment, that ROI, to get these projects done when they may not have normally gotten done in the past without state support. And you can see at a 75-25 local share, that is significant state support. So at this point in time, I think I've done my best to explain what the program is, and maybe more importantly, what the program is not. I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
But I just have one comment. I read this weekend that Watertown is just finishing up the final projects from the DRI that they received in 2017. So it's not going to be a quick process.
That is correct. It'll be at least a 5-year process.
If I could just offer a couple of additional comments. Fonda and I had the opportunity to have our first meeting with the project managers from the Department of State last week. In talking about the local planning committee, the project manager strongly, as Fonda pointed out, encouraged not appointing someone to that committee who may be filing an application for DRI funding. Even for the appearance of a possible conflict of interest. At the same time, other than the mayor, as Fonda noted, no other elected official will serve on that committee. There will be monthly updates from the committee publicly to City Council, as well meetings of the local planning committee will be open to the public. So you have the opportunity to sit and listen to the committee deliberations as they proceed. And just a reminder that the projects must be within the geographic footprint that was submitted in the grant application, which is basically the mall, going north to the Remington and to the library, going east just past the iBusiness.
Center for Sight.
Center for Sight, thanks. And then south of block toward St. Lawrence Federal Credit Union, and then the whole parking area around that. So, previous applications, I think, may not have been considered by the state because the applications might have tried to expand on what is considered a downtown, right? We rolled the dice last year and tried to say the Marina District was our downtown, and that wasn't funded by the state, and they gave us, I'll say, strong guidance is where we should put our focus if we want to have success in getting this funding. And we followed that advice, and it certainly paid off for us. So I just wanted to add those comments. Again, turning it over to council for other questions or comments. Okay, again, it's DRI funding for the city of Ogdensburg, but the state still controls the ball, and it's their baby, and there's their decisions, based on recommendations we make locally, but ultimately they make the call on who will get funding and who may not. Thank you, Fonda.
Thank you.
All right, next we have one proclamation tonight for Fair Housing Month. Whereas April 11, 2026 marks the 58th anniversary of the Federal Housing Act of 1968, which prohibits discrimination in housing because of race, color, sex, religion, national origin, handicap, and familial status. And whereas New York State additionally prohibits discrimination because of creed, age, sexual orientation, marital status, or military status. And whereas fair housing is a positive community good. And whereas economic stability, community health, and human relations in all communities are improved by diversity and integration. And whereas fair housing is integral to the ethical commitment of members of the National Association of Realtors and the St. Lawrence County Board of Realtors, and is critical to the ability of all real estate professionals to serve their clients, customers, and communities. And whereas acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunity are repugnant to a common sense of decency and fairness, therefore, I, Michael Tooley, Mayor of the City of Ogdensburg, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2026 as Fair Housing Month. And I, Mayor Michael Tooley, do hereby support citywide fair housing activity. And I urge our citizens, brokers, landlords, and bankers to rededicate themselves to ensuring that fair housing laws are always upheld and citizens are protected against discrimination. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and cause this seal to be affixed. We do not have any public hearings tonight, so that brings us to personal appearance. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and you will have 5 minutes.
Mayor, members of Ogdensburg Council, Arlene Kai, home-based business. After months, years, here we are. Yes, it's a small group of us, but that's on you guys, because I already gave you the numbers for 2025, and I don't work for the city. But as of March 20, 2026, FOIA was done regarding a list of all letters that have been sent out regarding home-based businesses since December 25th, 2025 through March 19th, 2026, determined that there are no documents to your request. So no letters went out. October 25th was your last letter. So nothing in November, December, January, February, or March. Not any movement being done. So you can't enforce the one ordinance when, why? Waste of any more time on new ordinance. Nothing in tonight's meeting about asking Code 4's fire chief if they can enforce this in the city of Ogdensburg. Why? It was asked at the last meeting. Affidavits went out. People want to know why nothing was done. Others thinking something's up. One business brought up a lot, never got an affidavit, but not even block, but a block away, we have a bed and breakfast paying commercial rates, and I'm paying home-based business rates. Why? I want an answer on this. You all know what business you are picking and choosing. Inconsistent enforcement has gone on long enough when a small group of us are paying and not others. It needs to stop. Council can't put a stop. The council can put a stop to the matter. Council can override the city manager. City Hall is not a one-man show. The selective enforcement is unacceptable and creates the appearance and reality of discrimination. Concerns regarding conflict of interest, council members and city administration have been involved in decision-making directly impact home-based businesses. Why? Some officials themselves or their immediate family members operate businesses. That appears to be treated differently. Inspections were done for some businesses while others, including, were not connected to city leadership. Why? This matter has, I don't know what that is, but it has made for the city government ordinance. You can't enforce it in the city. We see that, but you have spent so much time when home-based business is a business, period. All the time spent has not been worked out. So once again, the matter needs to be suspended because it is just a small group paying now, not into council can come up with the answers because yes, we are going to planning board. We really not sure why to waste more time in their time. This is on council. It has been on council. Fire chief told us about a drop box out front of City Hall. Well, that didn't work out for him. The city doesn't take a proactive approach to enforce. Instead, it relies on a reaction system, expecting citizens to turn one another in. This raises an important question. How much revenue has it been generated from the home-based businesses compared to the amount of time, staff, and public funds spent addressing the issue? Transparency, not a good word at City Hall. But at this point, I feel it's necessary. I respectfully request that the City Council consist transparent and enforce the home-based business regulations addressed and eliminate conflict of interest in decision-making, pause further enforcement actions until clear, fair policies are in place. We want the city fair, equitable, and supportive to residents who are trying to work, raising families, and contribute to the community. The current handling of this issue is not reflective of the values. I look forward to clear answers, meaningful action from the City Council. Thank you, daycare providers. I have another question, seeing the rec directors here tonight. I would like to ask you about the fishing scales at the Dubisky Center. They got them with grant money in 2012 and need to be auctioned off. They have been sitting down there for years. They will need to be updated. I have been asking about them for years. I would like an answer on scales. They are not cheap scales. The grant was for fishing the St. Lawrence River from Patty Ritchie. I got the same grant scales for the Northern New York Junior Bassmasters as Matt Coachella got for the Sandberg Classic. You can make more money off the fishing scales than you have the home-based businesses. And I'd like you to look over, I don't know if you really get it, but this is who's paying and who's not. And this is about nothing done since December. So I want council to look that over too.
Thank you, Arlene. Thanks.
It's already highlighted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So, William Snyder, talking about this home-based business stuff. The handout you have is an email from Mayor Tooley dated May 30th, 2024, referencing the May 28th, 2024 council meeting. 2 years ago, the city staff and city council decided unanimously to enforce the municipal code concerning mixed-use structures and/or home occupations. And I'll quote part of what the mayor said. If a property owner is identified as having a business in their home, including daycare providers, they will be notified of the need to comply with the municipal code. Individuals who claim they do not have a business in their home will be required to complete an affidavit so stating, which is kept as part of the property file. This is the same policy the city uses when conducting rental inspections. The mayor notes, in New York State, it is a crime to file a false affidavit. The mayor states, city council supports this recommendation. The mayor also states, I believe this is not the solution you preferred based on our conversation, but I believe it is a move forward toward equitable treatment among small business owners such as yourselves. So 2 years later, where is the enforcement? Where's the equitable treatment? Clearly you agreed to it. When are you going to enforce what you all agreed on? Do you not stand by your word? I would also like to ask city council tonight to answer this question at the appropriate time in the meeting. Why isn't the current home business ordinance being enforced? We can all see it isn't. Why can't you? According to recent files, nothing has been enforced since October of 2025, 6 months. Why? The council knows there are qualifying home businesses out there, and the city staff does as well. What about Lee Jones Insurance Company, who offers walk-ins and has a sign out in front of his house? He's a home business. What about the Claire House, who holds events all the time? Actually, it's a commercial business, but at the very least, a home business. Is code enforcement afraid to do the job? Or are they being told not to? If not, why isn't it being done? How can the city council sit by and continue to let this not be enforced? Why hasn't council pushed enforcement of this? It clearly shows you do not care. Does the council think this is right? Do you think it's right only to charge some home businesses and not others? It doesn't matter if you pass this new ordinance or not. You know as well as I do, it isn't going to be enforced. So they're not enforcing the current one. So why would you think the city's going to enforce the new one? A tier A, come on. The city doesn't have the competency to find tier B and enforce it. There is no way they're going to find and charge anyone that falls under tier A. I'm guessing when it comes to the part in tonight's meeting, where council can answer us the question of why current home business ordinance isn't being enforced, everyone will stare at each other and nothing will be said, as usual. If you don't know why the current home business ordinance isn't being enforced, at least stand up and ask the city manager why, since you're the ones that want to enforce it. You are our city council. We elected you. Just sit there, do your job.
Thank you, William.
Tanya Snyder, Home-Based Business. On Friday, March 20th, 2026, I did another partial status on 709 Franklin Street, the Claire House. This business has been open and operating for 2 years and paying a residential rate for water and sewer. Has this business obtained necessary permits, inspections, certificate of occupancies? I don't know, because the city will not fulfill my complete property file FOIL request I submitted 4 months ago on December 2nd, 2025. I'm guessing because they know it will show nothing has been done and that they are not in compliance with city code. City staff and code enforcement would know this information and should be updating council since everyone received the FOIL request information on this business. Council should have by now asked for the full property file on the Claire House since they became aware that they've been operating a business to confirm the business is in compliance with the city code. This is a place where customers pay to stay overnight. I brought this up to Mayor Tooley at the beginning of the year. I said, what if something happens and there's a fire and something unfortunate happens to people there and they are hurt? And come to find out that no inspection was ever done on the business residence and it wasn't in compliance with city code. How would you feel if you had known and did nothing? The city manager stated a few meetings ago that safety was the main concern about code enforcement department. Or the city manager stated it. That safety was the main concern of the code enforcement department. Shame on you. I said, here is a clear example of selective enforcement or absolutely no enforcement. You keep saying that it's not going to be fair. Do you think it's fair if you don't start enforcing the municipal code on this business? Then don't enforce me on my business or the other handful of small-based businesses. Thank you. I'll bring you back.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
Anyone else in chambers?
Mine was more trying to find a committee or something to argue parking tickets. Me and Lieutenant were talking this morning, and it was down here in front of the DMV where the 2 handicap parkings were, and there's a 1 hour parking all the way down till you get to that handicap spot. I pulled up to it and got a ticket. And, you know, like they said, it's for both sides, but on the other side of the other sign is a fire hydrant. So I thought it was between the two, but there was, I guess, a neutral party to figure if it was, you know, something, because he said the city judge, you can't argue them anymore. I mean, if it was a $10, $20 ticket, that'd be one thing, but $60, $90, you know, and, you know, he suggested to come down and ask about, you know, getting something where they could, people could, you know, there's, so that there's neutral parties, you know, because he's, like he said, the department's on one side, where, you know, citizens are on the other, you know, and it's kind of, you're guilty no matter what. Because my thing was, it wasn't clearly marked, there was no arrows, anything, you know, so I was just, or even get it changed, you know, down there, because the one handicap and the 1 hour parking are so close, it's within my truck length, you know, so it's, and when I talked to the sergeant that was writing out the ticket, he said, you know, he's like, if I'd have drove by, I probably wouldn't have stopped to give it a ticket, but, you know, being a complaint, and you are on this side, said, I just thought it was for both inside, you know, because that'd be more handicap than where I was. You know, if I was looking for a handicap spot there, and then a few years ago in the same area, I gotten a ticket there. I drove my grandmother's car who had a handicap, 85, helping her in. He gave me a ticket because he said, I'm not the handicapped individual. That one did get thrown out, you know, because it was placarded and whatnot, but it seems to be an ongoing issue down there, you know, and I just, you know, I thought where I was, you know, I was far enough. I guess not far enough, but I didn't pass the handicap sign. I just something in between it. So I don't think it'd be done, or any suggestions, or a neutral party to think about it, and that was all. If there's any questions.
No. What is your name, sir?
Eric Farron.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Shannon Thornhill again. We had a few questions tonight regarding everything I just heard a little bit ago. One, when the man was talking from Franklin County, Nathan Cox, and he was talking about the other grants that were available, he mentioned affordable housing, right? Like, but nobody asked, and maybe you guys already know the answer, so maybe you could help me with that. What is the top monetary dollar on affordable housing? Like, what's the top that they're considering, or for income? Is it a yearly income? Does anybody know that answer? Because everybody kind of just uses that fluidly. They always say, oh, affordable housing. Do we know the exact definition of affordable housing? Is it if you make 75,000 a year, under 100? I'm just kind of wondering. And number two, okay, don't be covered there. Oh. There. Oh, I had a comment in regards to the home-based businesses. I know we've been going back and forth, and for these people, it seems like a considerably long time. And I'm offering a suggestion, perhaps, I mean, do with it as you will, but as opposed to going back and forth and like Councilor Tebow said, maybe like a flat fee, perhaps we do incorporate a flat fee for them, but within the flat fee, it covers the expense of the extra sewer water, and then perhaps also it gives them the access for the Chamber of Commerce. Now, I sit on the board for that, for the, what are we calling it? Like the liaisons, if you will. So we're helping the local businesses. And like I had said to them, not many people know what the Chamber of Commerce does for small businesses. So perhaps if we gave them also an incentive to every year you pay the flat fee, it covers maybe the excess water and sewer rates, it covers that. And then it also gives them the incentive to join the chamber, which in that, ambassadors. So then with that, the chamber can then help them grow their business. Maybe some want to stay home, maybe some want to grow if they can. But that would also give them incentive for paying and registering as a business. My next topic was, and I went to the planning board and heard them speak about 100 Ford Street. Now I know that's going to be hopefully coming to topic and we're going to be discussing that. But as we are just reviewing today and the big grant that we just received, business-wise and business speaking, I would say that is not a good development site for them. We are going to get grant money smack dab in that whole center and then handing out property to another non-for-profit is not a wise choice. And I'm going to have a hard time finding reason to continue to develop and build that area, right? I mean, as it is, we have other programs there that already kind of concern some of the customers that come into my area down there. And if we revitalize the mall, which would be amazing, they're going to all have the same concerns. And I think that really needs to be considered on a serious note before we start issuing out grant money. Because as a business owner, and I know other business owners there, they will also have a problem ponying up millions of dollars to then have that there at that location. That's going to be tricky. And then my last piece, did we ever revisit Live Barn? I know the season's kind of coming to an end, but for us hockey parents, we have spring season and we have summer, and fall is right around the corner. So I didn't know if we had revisited the Live Barn to give that another look. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Anyone else in chambers? Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to, I'm sorry.
Deborah Quinn, I would just like to ask about the splash pad. In light of the increase in our sewer bill, I know that we'll have thousands of gallons of water going through, and I just am worried about the excess water that is going to entail. And wondering, I know last time or a few times ago, they said it wouldn't be significant, but I'm thinking any waste of water at this point is going to be significant because we're going to have to chlorinate it. And other than that, I'm wondering about if you all have heard about the nails on the road at the end of Proctor Ave. And I called the police department on that because there was a blog on the scanner and a lot of people are getting tires, nails in the tires and are having to repair tires from this vandalism. So I'm not sure what the procedure is on that. If maybe people that have nails in the tires could give a statement to the police department And maybe the DPW could get out there with their magnets or whatever they do and get these screws and nails off the road. And I think it involves Dearborn Street, Lisbon Street, Proctor Ave, across going to the bank, the credit union. And also I heard that this is happening on Champlain Street. Is anyone familiar with that? Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe how some of these people could get some sort of reimbursement from the perpetrator and how they do that, it would be nice to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Anyone else in chambers? Okay, now if anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature. The city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you'll have 5 minutes.
The first individual is registered as Penny Sharrow, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted.
You hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, first of all, I want to make a statement. You all got my email, I'm assuming, that I sent to you as I keep pleading for the pool to be open this summer because of no access to any place to swim for the kids. The swim lessons were listed as part of the criteria to obtain that grant that we got for the pool. So hopefully you'll keep that in mind when you start discussing what you plan on doing with the fees of the fund. We had a lot of one-on-ones. It's a lot of young kids that are down there just learning to swim. That's why it seemed like it was astronomical, but it was a lot of little kids with a one-on-one situation. Anytime you want to come down and watch them, feel free. All right, nobody's sitting around, that's for sure. Okay, my next thing is the GYMO. They are the engineers for this pool project. All right. Supposedly we hired them. The way I was reading it, the way I've read the contract is we hired them as construction management services to the tune of $141,000, $41,600. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I read it wrong. But that's the big price I saw in there. And we got one design for that pool. It seems to me for that price, we might have been able to get more than one design. And from what I understand, it was late. So then it kind of got crammed down our throats is the way I'm looking at it. But that's just me. But that's a big chunk of change for no one to understand whether we deserve more than one design for that amount of money. Maybe I misunderstand it. Feel free to call me or correct me or send me an email because I'm sure we'll find something. On the next page, there is a resolution being presented for the city manager to enter into agreements for the construction of the pool, bathhouse, and splash pad project. In regards to a resolution like that and the amount of money we're dealing with, I think there should be more than one person making decisions on what's being done down there. And maybe I'm reading that wrong, but it appears that one person is going to be doing it. Perhaps there should be 2 more people so that at least we have maybe 2 against 1 or whatever the case may be, or everybody in favor of it. I think there should be more than one person involved in that. I mean, I don't care if maybe the CPO from the pool or whatever the case may be, but I don't think one person should be making decisions on a $2 million grant. Maybe you disagree with me. That's a big chunk of change to be playing with. And I would hope you took some of the emails I've sent you and some of the information I've given you in regards to this pool with nothing to do. There's also no summer school to my knowledge this summer. So there may be even more kids involved in our programs and in our pool. And so, but a pool, if it's open, a lot of people aren't even going to know it's not open until they walk to that door and it's still locked. And I think you're well aware of that. I think anybody here has looked at the number of people not at the meeting and the number of people that didn't come to the one public presentation we had. So I think there's a lot you got to consider here, please, and think about the people you're there for. And it may not be all the upper echelon, but hey, everybody needs a place to cool off in the summer. All right. I hope you really take it what I've tried to present to you, and I'm not trying to be obnoxious, even though I do come across that way sometimes. I'm sorry, I apologize for that, kind of. And I hope you take in consideration no place to go. the safety of the people is a big, big, big thing. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Penny.
I do not see any other hands raised, Mayor.
That brings us to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence this evening?
We do not.
Next, we have our consent agenda. That the claims as enumerated in general fund warrant number 6-2026 in the amount of $726,365.28. And library warrant number 6-2026, the amount of $0. And capital fund warrant number 6-2026, the amount of $430,132.20. And community development fund warrant number 6-2026, the amount of $0. And community renewal fund warrant number 6-2026, the amount of $0. As audited, being the same, hereby are ordered paid. I so move.
Second.
Questions? Kathy, please call the roll.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes?
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Tebow,
Yes.
Counselor Trim,
Yes.
approved.
We have no appointments tonight, so that brings us to items for council action. Our first item of business will be read by Assessor Michelle Wilcox.
Good evening. A resolution to call for a public hearing regarding a local law to amend Chapter 199 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Taxation.
Someone care to introduce this?
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Again,
Could we get like a summary?
This is when we discussed last meeting about the spacing in the monetary amounts of the senior exemption.
right, the ranges in our original
Yeah.
resolution weren't accurate, and so this cleans that up for this benefit. So again, this resolution is just a call for the public hearing at our next meeting. Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Tebow,
Yes.
Counselor Trim,
Yes.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes,
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
approved.
thank you, Michelle. Our next item of business, we read by City Manager Fonda Cronis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A resolution calling for a public hearing at an ordinance amending the following sections of Chapter 157 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Peddling and Soliciting, Section 157-3 entitled License Required, Section 157-4 entitled License Application, and Section 157-12 entitled License Fees.
I'll move that.
Second.
Just a brief explanation behind the changes.
Kathy, go ahead.
Sure. So as you may recall, there were some representatives of the Seaway Festival that had attended a meeting last fall, and they were expressing their concerns about individuals who were not registered with the city as a peddler, nor were they registered with the Seaway Festival as a peddler. They were concerned about some changes that they would like to see made in our code, and that's exactly what is being proposed here. So it would be an increase in the license fee as well as an increase in each assistant. I did do a comparison over multiple communities in the North Country, only to find out that the city of Ogdensburg is actually the only municipality that did not require every single vendor to be registered. We were also the lowest in fees. The fees were last increased in 2009, which is actually the date that they were actually introduced by council. I do have the comparisons. In a typical year, the average is about 5 licenses with 8 assistants. However, I will bring your attention to the fact that since 2020 with COVID, those numbers did go down. So over a 10-year period, that's your average. Looking at the communities that I did the comparison on, like I said, I looked at Syracuse, Troy, Webster, Lowville, Canton, Saginaw, Messina, and Clayton. And again, we were the only municipality that did not require every vendor. The policy as it's stated right now is that peddler permits are only required for those individuals who want to vend on city-owned property. and the other communities. So for instance, right now, the way the code's written, if someone wanted to set up a hot dog stand in the Price Chopper parking lot with permission from that plaza, Gateway Plaza ownership, they would be able to do that. Under what's being proposed, anyone who's vending. I spoke with representatives from the other communities who highly recommend that the city does impose a requirement on all vendors as a way to monitor. I'll bring your attention to street festival permits. For instance, when we used to have a carnival for the Seaway Festival and all of the food vendors we have right now for the Seaway Festival, every person who works and is employed by those companies is vetted by our police department to make sure that we do not have individuals with issues, pending warrants, things of that nature, that are interacting with our citizens. On a similar note, anyone who applies for a taxi license or wants to be a taxi driver is also vetted by the police department. So this, in essence, would just bring this section of the code in compliance with what the city is doing with other sections.
Thank you for that explanation, Kathy. Questions or comments from council?
I have one question, just for clarification purposes. So if a peddler vendor is registered with the city of Ogdensburg for the year, is there another fee that is required during Seaway Festival?
By the Seaway Festival, that is correct. Our permits currently exclude the Greenbelt area during Seaway Festival.
So the only place an additional fee for a vendor would be required is if they are in the Greenbelt area.
That is correct.
So on parade day, they could have it anywhere on Ford Street, but just the Greenbelt when it is Seaway Festival.
The way it's stated right now, the permit states that it excludes only the Greenbelt area. I know the Seaway Festival representatives would strongly encourage that it also include Ford Street. But under what's being proposed, everyone would be required to have a peddler permit with the city unless they were only licensed with the Seaway Festival, which in my opinion is helpful because you do have a lot of vendors that come into the city only for the festival. There's a big draw. So they're not going to want to register with the city only to be here for a 2-week, 10-day period. Sometimes it's only the long weekend for the fireworks and the parade.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Chivo?
Yes.
Counselor Tren?
Yes.
Mayor Tully?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Scavengly?
Yes.
Approved.
Next order of business will be read by City Manager Fonda Cronus.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with New York State DOT, Department of Transportation, as an EBO, which stands for Equitable Business Opportunities System User for the Maple City Rail Trail Connector Project.
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
Any discussion?
Could you explain what this actually means, Fonda?
Sure, it's really procedural in nature. We are trying to resurrect that rail trail connector project. In doing so, this has been put off probably since 2018-ish or so. We've had a few city managers since then and no longer have a planning director. So this would authorize me to be able to fill out the forms and submit some things on behalf of the city to the DOT.
Any other questions? Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Chivo?
Yes.
Counselor Tren?
Yes.
Mayor Tully?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next order of business will be read by City Manager Fonda Cronus.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into agreements for the construction of the pool, bathhouse, and splash pad project.
We'll move that.
Second.
Questions or comments? I think I'm going to turn over to management first to give us an update, again, a reminder on comments about the pool conditions from your perspective, from the engineer's perspective, as to why this resolution is on the table this evening.
Sure. So the first thing I'll say is when you total up the bids, it is under budget, not by a lot, about $80,000. That's of course the construction portion of the project. That does not include the overage for the splash pad that council's already approved. But I do want to say that in total, with all of the alternates. We're still within within the budget for the pool construction, and we're hoping to save a few bucks by taking on some of those alternate ourselves. But I would just assume approve all the alternates now, and if we can save some money as we're figuring things out, we'll go. But we don't want to delay things. I do have a bunch of notes here that I'll read. Some questions that have come up over the past week or so. This design does have a fence around the splash pad. There is a gate between the pool and the splash pad, a gate door. Whether that ends up being locked or unlocked will depend on supervision, ability for us to supervise. There are some potentials for outside the facility uses for this 2026 season. Of course, we have to keep in mind that the pool season is actually quite short. 8 weeks is about the limit for that. We are looking at opportunities maybe in Lisbon Beach or maybe another beach, maybe some other local, close to local indoor pools. The issue ends up being safety and liability and who's going to be responsible for children when they're being transported, when they go to these other facilities. And so management's really going to prefer an approach that centers on the splash pad, right? The point of this was we always knew, or we learned through this process that it's a 7-month construction process. So there's no way to really effectively split up between 2 seasons. So that, I think it's a misnomer to think that we didn't pursue that. But when we realized this was 7 months, right, certainly more than half a year, there really is no way with the short construction period here in the North Country to be able to split the tasks up anywhere effectively to be able to do that. So we always knew that there was going to be a problem, and so we designed this strategically to make sure that the splash pad would be available in the summer so that at least the residents had something to cool themselves off with, a place for the children to go to be able to play without the pool being there. It's never ideal to have to close the pool. We get that, but we just don't see another way around that. Despite what some people might claim, there's just no way construction schedule-wise for us to be able to pull it off over the course of 2 construction seasons. It just does not work. What we are thinking about doing is putting together what I would call a value add system, adding amenities to the splash pad area to be able to make it more of a destination. I don't have any details right now. The team and I are trying to figure some of those things out, but we feel that that's probably a better alternative than try to figure out how many buses do you get? Do you turn kids down because we didn't get enough buses, or we didn't get enough kids to go, but now we had to pay for 6 buses, but we only used 3? And who's going to watch everybody? And how are we going to account for people getting off the bus, getting back on the bus? There are a lot of logistics that we have to think about and be worried about. It would crush me if something were to happen because we tried to bus kids somewhere and something happened to them, or they got left behind, or something, God forbid, would happen to them. I think it's a real concern, and it's something that the management team has considered already. And these decisions that we've asked council to make have always been considered. I'm going to pass it over to Shane right now to talk about the dire condition of the current pool situation, and Jeremy is here as well, and he can probably add some context. And then I'll talk about some of the specifics as far as the engineering situation is concerned and schedules and those things.
Good evening. In speaking with Jeremy, the head of facility maintenance, and our other CPO, as you guys might recall, last year we tried to extend it a couple weeks, which we got through, but we were unable to use the slide because it's not putting enough return pressure out in the pool itself. So we're running our pump system at about 50% of what it's supposed to be just to maintain. The pool's losing about 2 to 3 inches of water. That's after they got in the water and sealed below the gutters, the caulk line, which obviously needs to be done again. The baby pool chemical feeds doesn't work. So we had to close it down for a certain period of time last year till the chemicals got back to the rate where the DOH did an inspection. Other issues are the mortar in the pool, where it goes from the deep end, or the shallow end to the deep end. There's a lot of cracks there. If you knock on it, it's hollow. So I don't know the condition underneath that. Other things that I got in here, they talked about automatic feeds in the big pump, the poor condition of the toilet flushes, the showers. We did get a little ahead of ourselves and we did tear the benches out because that's something we're going to do in-house to save money. So there's no benches, not saying we can't get something in there, but we did take them out to start working on them. As far as it goes for DPW's helping out with the pool, timing's everything for us. Like springtime, we're just gearing up for construction season. So if we try to push it later out, we're going to be in the middle of construction. We're wrapping up, like we do our paving first, then we try to do potholes and road cuts in the fall. So it's going to hinder how much our efforts can be to help offset the cost to the city. What else do they got in here? The mechanicals are old, they're outdated. I think it was 2024, we budgeted between 12 and 15,000 to replace some of the things, but once we got the grant, we just tried to limp everything along so it wasn't a waste of money. So, I mean, the condition is dire. I mean, Jeremy could get up and speak more of all the issues they had last year. They spend 2 to 3 to 4 hours a day there, keeping it running. I know people don't see that because when they get there, the pool's up and going. But it is a big concern if we can make it through, and the parts are obsolete, right? To get parts for it isn't easy if they can find them. So if something does go down, it could be weeks, if not months. So it might be just, get it going and last a couple weeks. Sundance came up last year, rigged some part up for us with washers and said it might last, it might not. So it's beyond its life use, I would say. We got 30 good years out of it with not much maintenance, unfortunately.
Shane, when you say that when you knock on that area, it's hollow, so it's more than just patching the pool, is that what I'm hearing? That there could be
Most likely,
voids underneath
yeah,
that are
that's
more of
what
a
we-
concern?
Yes.
I was going to ask if we could split it up, but after hearing Fonda, it's almost impossible. We could do some, open the pool for 6 weeks, close it.
It would be, is it impossible? Probably not. Right. That's the truthful answer, but is it recommended? No.
No. Okay.
I mean, if you pour one set of concrete this time of year, then you bring in the next concrete next year and it's 2 different material types, stones dug from 2 different depths, it's going to look different.
Yep. So there's no chance of splitting the project.
It's not recommended. I think he's going to get into that from what the engineer said after I talked.
Yeah, and then the other issue is these bids are only good for a certain period of time. If you want to extend the price, then we have to either rebid or some type of inflation factor is going to have to go into that. And we're barely at budget now. The question is does council have the appetite to accept those additional costs, which would probably be in, the hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is not a small project.
Right.
By any stretch.
Because I can tell you if certain people don't see that there's project process is in the works and we have weeks where there's nothing being done, we're going to hear about it. So, if we start at April, whatever, or whenever we start it, I think it needs to be done, not just, oh, let's dig a hole and then wait.
Yeah, the way the
schedule got to be kept.
Is the same company bid on the pool that got the splash pad work.
Yep. So they're going to be here.
They'll do the splash pad work first or try to bring another team in to start the pool work. And then we got some work we're going to do, but the general contractors and stuff should be able to be in. The first thing, the fence has got to be moved for them. So there's going to be.
Can't get a machine in there, right?
Yes, and moved out of the way for the splash pad. So
Yep.
there should be work full, going to be
Right.
slow at the beginning, then ramp up for the summer, then, slow in the fall
Sure.
and then finish it up.
I'm just saying,
I
you know what I'm saying, right?
Yep.
You hear what I'm saying here is it better be moving forward, because if it's not, we're going to hear.
These companies, they generally have a schedule. I mean,
Yeah.
they know, they want to get it done.
But we've all been involved in projects at school where they dig a hole and then it sits because whatever, they're waiting for a part or whatever. I'm just saying, if that happens.
We hear that, Councilor Tebow, but we also have to hedge that and say that sometimes the untrained eye sees nothing being done, but in the background, there are things being done. And let's face it, we're digging a hole that hasn't been exposed in 30 years. There is a chance that we find something that we didn't anticipate. So there's always going to be those situations. We are going to
understand that.
Yeah, we're going to have, well, the public needs to understand that as well. It's important to know that we want this done, because the last thing I want to do is come to council and say, hey, we're not going to get this done in the timeframe we said we were going to. That would certainly not be good for anybody. And the point of the matter also is that, the city is expending its own funds and being reimbursed, just like a DRI program. The last thing I want to do is have, a couple $1 million outlaid, but, we can't get those dollars back. That's an opportunity cost loss for us. So we hear what you're saying. We will have construction management. And those folks they do daily reports. They'll report back to us weekly. And certainly I will make sure that I swing by on multiple occasions in the week to make sure that, progress was going on. But if we take a 1 hour snapshot in time and say, this is what's happening, that may not be as accurate as it could be.
Perhaps we could offer sharing those updates with the general public, just with a little synopsis of where we're at. So the general public knows if there is a delay, what it is, where we're at, we're on schedule. I think that would go a long way, since it is so important to use that during the summertime. I think it would be a good thing to share.
And I do think Penny's concern, I'm going to say Penny, is the fear of some kid jumping off the twin bridges, which we see them do it all the time, whether the pool's open or not, and drowning, and then we didn't have the pool open. They're doing it anyways, but those kids that are jumping off the docks or off the twin bridges probably aren't using the pool. Maybe they are, but she's concerned about that. That's her big concern, and I get it.
I get it too.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a long,
It is what
short
it is.
construction season in the North Country.
Yeah.
And then try to break it up over 2 years. And to your point, if something does go wrong or a part doesn't come in right now, we just lost a summer anyway.
Lost the summer, yeah. Okay, sounds good.
We have criteria to follow with the grant though, right, for a certain period to finish the project. It's not out there forever.
No, it's a 5-year project, but we want it done much quicker than that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would just hope that if there's anything discovered that's unexpected and serious, that I would hope to be found early in the process.
You would think.
So hopefully it can be addressed within this season. Because in short, to sort of echo comments made by Councilor Tebow, that pool better be up and running day 1, 2027.
This company, this is pretty much what they do. I can't.
Yeah,
really read that apart.
Everything that dealings we've done with them, like we've called them for help the last couple of years. They're great. They're a local North Country firm, and that's one of the reasons we're glad they bid. Even we didn't know how many bids, but we were, I'm hoping they got it, my personal opinion, just because if something happens, they're only in Watertown, right?
Right.
We're not waiting for someone out of the area, which could be, an issue.
We think we have a good team. We hold them accountable, right, Shane? We hold them pretty tight accountable. And we have every confidence that it will be done on time. Sure. Although we just can't predict the future.
Absolutely.
And I think the splash pad parts were delivered to their yard last week. So they're ready, they want to start at the
Ready
end
to
of the
go.
month.
If the ground were soft, we could probably get them going, sooner than the construction schedule. But, that we have every indication that will be up and running at the right time and at least provide some relief to our residents.
But I have a question on the wording of contract 3. I'm looking at the bid page and it was 49,750. And on the front it says 54,750 for the base bid and 5,000 for the alternatives. What are we talking about? Are we talking about a total of 59,000? We talking 49,000 plus the 5,000? And what are the alternatives?
Well, I'll answer the alternative right now. And was that for mechanicals? Let me get my trusty thing here. I do believe contract 3 is electrical, and the $5,000 alternate is for replacing switches, fixtures, and outlets.
So that 5,000 is an addition is included in the 54,750?
54,750 is the correct number. The way it was written is, it was written as a deduct as opposed to an alternate, which is a big term that I don't necessarily pretend to understand all that much, but the total amount is 54,750.
So that includes the 5,000. We're not looking at 59.
No, and I'm going to make it even easier for you. Shane's team's going to do that work for about $500. So the real number that we're going to pay is 49,750. And I don't think I'm surprising Shane by making that statement at this point. But to be consistent, we wanted to make sure that we listed all of the alternates.
I was just curious because the number didn't match up to what I'm.
Anyone else on council? I do have a statement I'd like to read on this. I took the time to review council minutes from October, November regarding the proposed pool and bathhouse renovations and the addition of the splash pad at this site that's going to be funded through the New York Swims grant. This grant opportunity provided the city the opportunity to address serious deferred maintenance issues with the existing pool. The engineer hired by the city, Gymo, shared its design proposal on October 27th, both with a public presentation at the Dubisky Center and at that evening city council meeting. Opportunity was provided to public and city council to ask questions and offer comment pertaining to the design and direction inferred by council to management at that time was to continue forward with this project. While many of Mrs. Sherrill's questions are fair to be asked based on her years of experience in administering pool activities, at the end of the day, I do not agree with the solutions she proposes. Instead, I defer to the recommendation of the aquatic experts hired by the city, such recommendations supported by city management in proceeding with this project as designed. It is my understanding that to move forward with this project will require the loss of the use of the pool for one season. Not an ideal situation, especially since the possible use this year of the pool at Old Bay cannot be considered due to the capital project work being done at that site. However, I do not believe it would be money well spent by the city in labor and resources to continue to triage the pool for another season. I also do not believe it would be a responsible use of city monies to delay this project accompanied by a redesign of the project by Gymo. So at the end of the day, I believe the result of this project will be a modern municipal pool that adds additional ADA compliance to the facility, accompanied by splash pads to provide additional value to the swimming pool complex and are expected to be available this season. And for these reasons, I intend to support this resolution. Any other questions or comments? Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Trim?
Yes.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Tebow?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Historian Julie Madden.
A resolution authorizing the city historian to submit an application for a grant for good through the Northern New York Community Foundation.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Questions, comments? Kathy, please call the roll.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Tebow?
Yes.
Counselor Trim?
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you.
And Kathy, I guess for the record, can you inform us what time Councilor Powers joined the meeting?
7:49 PM, but he, to be honest with you, was having technical difficulty, and I noticed that he popped offline, so that's why I didn't call him at the last roll call. Just noticed that he's back, so I included him this time.
Okay, thank you.
Sure,
Thank you, Kathy.
absolutely.
That brings us to old business. We'll begin with City Manager Fonda Cronus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council hopefully recalls a moratorium on battery energy storage that it passed in the fourth quarter of last year. The planning board has taken up that issue and has gone through its due diligence and has an ordinance that it will propose to council. What I wanted to do is just kind of talk about that just very briefly and let you know that the process is moving forward. I know Councilor Silly had some concerns about it moving forward quickly enough. So what I will do is I will provide that ordinance to council to review well beyond, it's relatively complicated stuff. And then at the next meeting, we'll call for a public hearing. And then at the second meeting in April, ask you to vote up or down. And next meeting, I'll do just a quick briefing on what the ordinance entails. It follows the state's model ordinance. They call it a local law, but for us, it would be an ordinance. And we had our planning consultants look through it and provide some additional feedback. And you can be more strict, but you can't be less strict on this situation. And so there were a couple of sections they suggested to be more strict. The planning board agreed. As well as in the model law, there are several areas where there is some debate as to what you'd like included. You know, the height of a fence, the type of zoning that you would require. Those types of things. So we'll go through all of that in a fine tooth comb to make sure that council understands and when they are comfortable in voting on it, that you have a good handle on the situation. I don't think it's super complicated, but there's a lot to it. And I just want to make sure that I'm talking about it now so you understand the legislative process that we're planning on bringing to you and try and get those documents to you sooner rather than later so you have plenty of time to review it.
In addition to the planning board, I think it's important that we have input from Chief Stoll and the fire department on this particular issue also.
Yeah, there's serious changes to the fire code has been made when we talk about battery energy storage. So yeah, we'll certainly make sure that the chief has plenty of input on that and probably even comment at the next meeting on it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you for that information. Any other old business come before council tonight?
We have 2 items, Your Honor. The first, just as a reminder, the planning board will be having a public hearing on April 7th at 5:30 concerning home-based businesses. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. We have been talking about this for a while, and that is a venue for people that have suggestions, concerns to attend. So I just want to encourage that. And then second, we have a lot on our plate with grants and with other items coming in with the DRI. Could we, in the next week, get an update as to our efforts to hire a city planner? Could we get an update on that in the next week or so?
I'll give you an update right now.
That'd be wonderful.
I have received 1 application in the last 6 months, and I plan on interviewing that person. They're not an ideal candidate from a traditional standpoint, but I'll interview her. It came in maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I just haven't had an opportunity to set anything up yet.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Any other old business? That brings us to new business, and we'll begin with City Manager Fonda Cronus.
Sure. In 2025, we had inspections by both the DEC and the EPA. The EPA has not given us a final report yet. I mean, eventually they will, but it's been at least 8 months that I can figure out. We've gotten better feedback from our partners at DEC, but the initial indication is that the city's current sewer use law is antiquated and needs to be updated, will be required to be updated. Previous council has seen an updated sewer use law. And so in the second meeting in April, I will have our partners at the Development Authority come in and present the draft of the sewer use law, hit the highlights of it, give council an opportunity to ask the experts questions on this. I don't think it's a question of, whether we do need to adopt something more modern than we have. I think that is going to be a requirement of DEC and certainly EPA when they catch up to themselves. But an opportunity where at the edges where council can have some influence on changing or modernizing, we certainly want to provide that opportunity for council. The document is lengthy. We will get it to council as quickly as we can so that you have plenty of time to review it and look at it. I know there are several members of council who are probably familiar with it already, or at least had some interactions in the past with it. But this is something that's been on my whiteboard for quite a while, and I just assume get it off the whiteboard because we have a lot of other stuff that we've got to get done. This is something that needs to get done, and we want to do that so that we're in compliance. We're doing so well with all of our wastewater and our relationships with DEC that, I just want to make sure we continue doing that. And this is one of those things that can check a box and get us in compliance. Not that we're out of compliance, but at some point in time, we will be out of compliance.
Along those same lines, we had a lot of discussion with severe storm runoff. Spring is coming. That comes with heavy storms, melt, et cetera. We had talked about reducing runoff from our city-owned buildings, looking more at a storm management kind of situation. Could you give us an update on that in the future, sometime in the future?
Sure will.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other new business?
I just want to piggyback off of that. I think I've asked a question several times. And for folks at home, we've had meetings on this combined sewer separation. And one of the questions I continue to have is the shopping center. Is if whether or not they're tagged into our system or if they're expelling their rainwater out into the Oswegatchie, into the swale, so to speak, next to the highway. So, and I don't know if you were here when we did the first meeting with the DEC or whatever when I asked that, but
no, I don't think I was here.
There's still information I'm looking for because it's a pretty big parking lot. It's a pretty big set of buildings out there that is, if it's tagged into our regular sewer system, it could be overtaxing it. So
we'll dig into it and get you something.
Super, thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else new business?
I just would like to just address one question that came up about affordable housing. Typically, affordable housing is considered 120% of the HUD median income or less, and it depends on family size. And you can do a search for New York State affordable housing limits HUD median income in particular, and most grant programs follow that, but there are some exceptions depending on the grants that are offered, where they came from, and some of those could be less. But that's a typical amount.
With regards, follow up on that, to the presentation today on the vacant rental program, when it talks about the income limits being a percentage of the area median income, is there any way we could learn what that number is?
It says 80%, I think.
Yeah, well, what's the AMR?
80% of what?
So it changes by the year, I think, and then, so the person that runs the program would probably have a specific number.
Yeah, we'll get all of that. It's going to change every year. It will change, and the other change, as Councilor Stevenson mentioned, would be household size, right? So you'll have a grid and a chart with certainly single, and then two person, a three person family, et cetera, and so forth. So we'll dig up those numbers for you, certainly.
Thank you. Any other new business? Brings us to items for discussion, and I'll begin with the city manager, Fonda Cronus.
Okay. Over the past several meetings, I've noticed that a lot of members of the public have questions, and sometimes our forum isn't really designed to be able to answer questions in a detailed manner. So on council meeting days between 5 and 5:45, I'm going to hold public office hours. So anybody who has questions can come in without any kind of an appointment or anything. I'll reserve the time, and I can attempt to answer the questions for the public if I have the information readily available, or I can put it in the hopper and then get some guidance from the management team, or do a little research and then get back to that person with some answers. I guess it's also an opportunity to voice a complaint if you'd like to as well. But I would certainly like it to be more constructive back and forth and educational, both for me and for the members of the public. But I think it might be helpful. So I'm more than happy to do that.
So again, it does seem sometimes that they're asking us questions and I want to answer them, but I know that's not the format, but that would give them a chance to.
I would agree with that. And sometimes questions that are asked, we don't necessarily have the answers right at our fingertips, but I might have it in an email or in a file, and I just can't get up and go get them. My memory is only so good, and I'm not getting any younger. So, one of my jobs is to make sure that the public has as much information as we can legally give them. and we're more than happy to do that. We do not, we don't hide anything. You ask me a question, and if I can give you the answer, I'm more than happy to do so. Sometimes the format just doesn't allow for us to be able to have that interaction back and forth, and probably for some good reason at times. But I do think that, a lot of the questions that are asked, I think, are valid questions, and I'm more than happy to provide an opportunity to be able to answer those questions. So that will be the second and fourth Mondays from 5 p.m. to 5:45. I'll probably just leave the office door open. I don't have a secretary or an administrative assistant, and my office is in the back. So you just walk in and say hello and sit down, and we'll have a chat.
I think it's wonderful.
Yep, great idea.
Yeah. I see a lot of people come up and like John said, and then other things I know are in the works. I don't want to misspeak, for example, they're talking about the Claire House or bed and breakfast rates and things like that, but I don't want to misspeak to it. And so that's something they can bring to you to see where it is in the works.
Sure.
So.
All right, next.
We need more than 45 minutes.
All you're gonna get is 45 minutes. I gotta be in here by 6. But I can always take appointments.
Sure.
That's never an issue.
All right, next we have some information regarding fire engine purchase financing from City Controller Angela Gray.
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to provide council with an update. About a year ago, Chief Stoll detailed the need for a new fire engine. And under council's direction, a 2025 fire engine was identified for purchase. And this will replace a more than 20-year-old fire engine that has more than 40,000 miles on it. The cost of the new engine is $770,000. We've been working with the USDA to obtain funding, which will be paid over the useful life of the asset, which is about 15 to 20 years. The annual payment that we would be looking at is estimated to be, it's not final yet, between $60,000 and $70,000 per year under this financing arrangement. And the engine will be ready for delivery in June or July of this year. The next meeting will be presenting council with a bond resolution, which is required as a condition of financing.
Questions or comments? Thank you for that update, Angela.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, anything else from management?
No, sir.
Council?
No, good.
I have a couple. With regards to the question about Live Farm, we have informed them of changes to the contract that we would need to have in place for the city to execute it. They have asked the city to make those changes forwarded to them. We don't think it's our job to do that. It's their job to come back to us with the recommended contract that provides the language that our city attorney recommends that be included. So that's where that stands. With regards to Mr. Farron's question about his parking ticket, I mean, that's a legal issue that sort of falls outside of council. But does the citizen still have the opportunity to file a request for reduction with the city attorney? That used to be the case many moons ago, because I know I did it once. It had.
You want to come up and comment on that? Oh, the chief's on it. Maybe the chief can comment on that.
Yeah, back at that point, city court would actually hear our parking tickets, and therefore the city attorney worked as our prosecutor, and he absolutely did have the authority to reduce or dismiss the parking tickets. But since city court has become a part of the New York State court system, they will no longer hear our parking tickets. So this is actually something I've been working on since 2022 with our attorney. I've recently reintroduced it to Mr. Goldie, following a platform that the State University of New York utilizes, which is a panel of some citizens of the community, some employees of the municipality, and obviously be overseen either by the city attorney or the lieutenant, more than likely the lieutenant, as I would envision it, who would not have a vote But Mr. Farren's absolutely correct. We have to have due process on our parking tickets, and that is something we're working on.
Okay, so we'll get an update on that in the future. Yes. And thank you for sharing the location so, you know, law enforcement and other staff as needed can look at it to see if we have an issue with that particular location. So thank you for sharing that.
I was just going to echo that, Your Honor. It seems that that section has, because of the way it jigs and jogs there, there is some question as to where you can park and not. So I'm glad it's being looked at and being reviewed. Thank you.
I'm going to offer a comment with regards to questions coming tonight about the lack of activity with regards to home business since last October, November, when I asked for the opportunity for the city to revisit that because I don't think, at least I, as member of council and manager, was on the same page as what the current fee represents. Which has led us to where we are now. And again, I don't think council has walked away from the policy proposal that's on the table. Again, we asked for some input from the planning commission. And once they have finished their review and if they decide to offer any comment, then we'll take that into consideration. We'll bring the proposal back off the table and continue our review of that. But because of the possibility that there could be changes in the current code, and I suppose it's possible that some of these changes could end up being retroactive to the 1st of January, to sort of wait to see where council goes with this. I don't think, personally, I'm not saying this is why management is how management is handling this, but I don't think it's an unreasonable approach personally. Any other items for discussion? Okay, so that brings us to citizen participation. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and we'll have 2 minutes.
I feel that the last comment that you just said is monotonous, as basically, because we have a current code in place that has not been imposed for 6 months. You put you set us off to the planning board to delay it more. There's probably 50 to 100 businesses out there. I gave you your slip today that basically you gave at my first meeting that I ever came here, saying that it was a crime for the affidavits. Fill the affidavits out and charge the people for the water and sewer for the rest of the year. Because they're going to be charged under A or B or whatever, or if you don't pass it. But it is not fair to the 20-some people that are paying these charges that we have to pay it and nobody else is paying it. Because nobody is enforcing it. It's the only information that you have is the handouts that we give you. We pretty much spoon-fed you the freaking information. I feel like you guys do not listen to us at all. No answers. And honestly, some of us work a 9-to-5 job. So coming in from 5 until whenever, and Curtis is not going to listen to us. We've talked to him before.
Please address council.
But when it really comes down to it, I really feel not heard. Anything. I asked you hundreds of questions. How many answers? We send you emails. Nobody ever responds to an email. Nothing. I don't even know why we have a council. Because nobody does anything. And you can see the frustration. I'm just so done. To put us off to the planning board, that's how I found your information out today, because we have to build up our case to show it in front of the planning board that we've showed it to you guys for two and a half years almost. I'm done. I'm going to fight this till the very end. Goodbye.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else in chambers? Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raised hand feature, and the city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you will have 2 minutes.
The first individual is registered as Penny Sharrow, and it looks like you are unmuted.
Yep. Didn't go away. Sorry, guys. Thank you very much, Mr. Tebow, for trying to get this through on 2 projects. 7 months, where did that come from? This is a 7-month job. On the front of this application for the grant, project start date September 2026, anticipated date of project completion May of 2027. That is within the realm of what she applied for, which was renovation of an existing pool. It did not include new pool, which is just above that. So that makes sense for the renovation of an existing pool, that timeline. So I'm hoping you don't get snagged up somewhere along the line spending the money and then having these dates thrown back in your face, and all of a sudden we're paying the full shot. At one point, and then I don't know where this 5-year project came from. I hope you weren't talking about the pool. As far as I know, it was never considered a 5-year project. The splash pads are fine. They will never accommodate what we accommodate at the pool. I don't know how you're going to bus people elsewhere. And as for the kids swimming in the river, yes, I do have a concern about that. It's not just going off the Twin Bridges. It's from going off the pilings over by Hosmer's or down by the city docks or the boat ramp that's right out there where the old ferry pilings are still probably under the water somewhere. All right. Kids jumping in and swimming in there like they used to have to. And it has gone away since the pool has been there. I have not seen it. I have not heard it. I used to have to watch it and make me sick. But the point is, they are going to have nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. And you're not going to bus them. There's no city beach to bus them to. I watched them down there for 6 or 7 years also, coming over the hill. I really do think, I respect Shane and Jeremy's opinion, and I've done nothing but praise the DPW for the work and the jobs they do down there. But I do think that things could have been moving a little bit quicker and found out, why does it sound hollow? Do we all have x-ray vision? Is there a way we can figure this out? Can we fix it? All right, thank you. I'm sorry, but I just don't understand what you do. I've tried every rationale I can. I'm trying to be nice about the whole thing. And it may not sound nice, but I am. I'm afraid the kids, something's going to happen. But it won't be on me, that you can't say that I didn't try.
Thank you, Perry.
I do not see any other hands raised, Mayor.
All right, we have resolutions for executive sessions this evening. No. Whereas City Manager Fonda Cronus requested an executive session with members of the Augsburg City Council to discuss matters relating to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose, now therefore be it resolved, the City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
Second?
Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Sully,
Yes.
Counselor Powers. Counselor Powers,
Sorry, yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Tebow,
Yes.
Counselor Trim,
Yes.
Mayor Tully,
Yes.
approved.
A resolution to adjourn to executive session, whereas City Manager Fonda Cronus requests an executive session with members of the Augsburg City Council to discuss proposed pending or current litigation. And whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose. Now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss proposed pending or current litigation. And be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Tebow,
Yes.
Counselor Trim,
Yes.
Mayor Tully,
Yes.
Counselor Sully,
Yes.
approved.
We do not anticipate any action following executive session, so I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned after executive session.